915-544-5876. Or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Really, whatever works best for you is the right place for you to be, as we are continuing our mission to have live local talk radio in the borderland, because I think we deserve it. And also to talk about the things affecting us here, of which there is quite the laundry list to break down for you today. Very different situations we are encountering today whenever it comes to the border security immigration systems from all points, all levels involved with this: state, local, national, federal, even international, really, if you want to get down to it here, as more of those conversations are ongoing, including right before we got on air here. Got the update and expect a lot more to be coming out about this very shortly, about how the White House is responding to that Supreme Court action involving Title 42. They were having to provide that response by, well, about this time, technically a little bit before. I thought it was 5 p.m. Eastern time, so right about 3 p.m. Mountain time here as we're broadcasting in far west Texas. But some more of that information, so we'll try to break down that. Some of you but literally got that update as we're going on air here right now. So yeah, this situation very much fluid, very much in flux, but some physical differences that we can certainly talk about. A lot of reporting going on in the area. I got some of the pictures we'll be putting up from our news partners there at KFOX 14 and others, as we have Eric von Holstein-Rathlau and Flaco Jimenez chiming in over there. Eric von Holstein, I don't know how to do a Christmas tree emoji, but prayer hands, I believe, and Flaco Jimenez, good afternoon, everyone. And Robbie Flores, hi, everyone, as well. It's right back at you here. But yeah, got some of those pictures that we'll be putting up for you from our news partners there at KFOX 14. And from their sources as well, from what is going on in some of the areas here of the physical border barriers. Of course, the border fence, wall, whatever you want to call it, has been in place in a variety of different ways for decades now in El Paso. And some of those areas where there have not been the same kind of or differences in physical barriers, that being apparently one of the first things being done by the Texas Military Department, the 400 troops that were sent to this area after the emergency declarations and other things going on. A lot more state involvement after some changes in how that response was being considered by local elected officials. We'll break that down as well, including what the other weather situations beyond here, even just right now, what we're dealing with in our region. Definitely still a factor here, but how the things going on in the rest of Texas might further affect that. Yeah, we got, don't know what phrases we're using these days, polar vortex, bomb, cyclone, whatever it is called. Serious weather affecting not even just us here, but the rest of the state and kind of southwest as well. So, yeah, that might be causing other issues, and one of those reasons I'm glad we're not on the grid that the rest of the state is, but we still got our own issues that we'll break down for you here. And also, don't want to miss out on the election stuff, because even though there has been quite a lot that's been going on with everything else we're talking about, this is not to say that the elections, the runoff election held earlier this week and over the weekend, and the results coming out are significant, and even some hints about what is going to be coming up next for future elections. So quite a lot to get into today, a lot of commentary coming in, and a lot of discussion, including Eric von Holstein-Rathlau mentioning something, comment a little bit too long to put up on screen here, but saying that seeing a light at Boeing and Airway, and a busload was turning left onto Boeing, going away from the airport. Pointed group, about 10 people crossing Boeing, walking towards the airport, and there is a talking about the situation there. So John Browson also saying that Border Patrol agents are required to open the gates and let people in for processing, defeats the purpose of having 60 miles of border wall. Well, that's kind of the problem with the way the border wall is actually dealt with, because fact of the matter is that it's not like right on the boundary. It's not right on the, if you're on the other side of the wall, you're in Mexico. If you're on this side of it, you're in Texas or United States, that kind of thing. It is firmly and entirely within Texas. So the way our asylum laws are written, is that if you are in the United States, you can claim asylum. So that's why just saying, and this has been an argument going on for a long time, even before the current situation, that just say, yeah, build a wall, it'll take care of itself, literally does not apply for when it comes to the way our actual laws are dealt with and put forth here. But one of those, I guess, breaking news, as much as I don't like using that phrase in this program because we're all about the discussion here, but a lot more detail coming out right now. Again, White House formally asking the U.S. Supreme Court to deny efforts to keep Title 42 in place. However, it is also asking for a delay until next week if the request by multiple states to keep it in place is denied. The rule also allows border agents to expel any immigrants over COVID concerns. That the detail coming out immediately over the Title 42 situation. So hopefully we're getting a little bit more detail as it's coming out as we get further into the program. But got that into our newsroom, 3:59 here. So pardon me for still needing to gather a little bit of information on that. But there's still probably a lot more to come when it comes to that. Of course, Monday, it was Chief Justice John Roberts issued that temporary administrative stay on the policy. That decision came after several states filed an emergency application asking for the high court to keep Title 42 from ending, claiming it would lead to a flood of immigrants. That's, I guess, is still kind of a part of the situation that we're looking at here. So I mentioned that there are pictures and parts of it. So this is, for those looking over on our social media, you can see these pictures also over there from our news partners at KFOX 14. These are some of the scenes that could be seen in the areas of the border where there are those differences of enforcement, those differences of physical barriers, actually, what there was actually being the concertina wire strung. These pictures courtesy of our news partners there at KFOX 14 with those troopers from the Texas Military Department, though there can also be seen like Texas State Trooper vehicles as part of it out there. So this is part of what is coming there. Also, some riot shields being put down here, both along some of those areas where we had been seeing the scenes of those hundreds and eventually thousands crossing over the Rio Grande, and many different angles you can see here, including Humvee vehicles parked in kind of the dirt banks of the Rio Grande, even further down from the like concrete embankments that they are here. And the picture we got up right now actually showing the string of the concertina wire right down to the water line. This being one of the more impacting ones for my money here, showing the line of Humvees of different types here from the Texas Military Department lined up along, again, the dirt embankments of the Rio Grande in some of those areas here, including, again, where we have seen some of the largest crossings being happening here. Now, I'm aware of other similar efforts happening to varying degrees in other parts of the border, seeing previous things coming on along with also Eagle Pass, them doing a little bit more different. I mean, there's different circumstances in every sector you go to for what has maybe already been constructed or what to might be in place. They're doing there, such as building up temporary walls involving like Connex, shipping containers, those kind of things. So this are some of the scenes, including riot shield being seen in the foreground there, prepared for, crowd control. And again, some of the uniformed Texas Military Department troopers there. So those are some of the scenes that can be seen in El Paso immediately along the border as of today. Again, those pictures courtesy our news partners at KFOX 14. So this situation very much in flux. And as much as there is still that there's these changing policies, one thing that we can concretely say is that essentially what the administration has put forth with what will come next, if out of the other parts of it, if Title 42 would be going away, what the administration has said about that. And again, if you think that this is a tax benefit to the city, this situation here, I'm going to need you to get out of your bubble and actually talk to someone who is like down in those areas, because if you think that any local business owner is going to be happy about people sleeping out on the streets here, I think you need to check yourself. But let's go ahead and take that next break. First break of this hour, so we can get back and come back and not get in trouble on the breaks. Didn't get in trouble yesterday, but got close enough to it for my liking, about what is going on with some of the other with all the policies, what has been put forth about what would happen if Title 42 would end. The administration giving a little bit more clarity about that in recent days. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. We are, of course, taking those comments over on the social media, but focus a little bit later as we usually do. But in any case, back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSN. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690. Well, we'll start with the Patriot Freeway northbound at Trans Mountain Road. Police called this an assistance call on the Trans Mountain exit. Police cars are at the scene, so watch for that. Accident shoulder blocked at I-10 eastbound at Yarborough. No lanes are blocked, but be aware of that. Rescue units are on the scene. Larry Aarons, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
Help the planet with a tip from iHeartRadio Earth. Water heating can account for up to 25% of the energy consumed in your home. Save money and energy and improve the comfort of your home by turning down the temperature of your water heater from 140 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It can save you up to 22% on your energy bill annually. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
There are things that go together that make mornings better. Coffee and cream, bacon and eggs, pancakes and syrup.
Let's take a look at traffic and weather together.
Traffic and weather. Yeah. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio. Updates all day long.
General things like that help me get through my day.
Before you head out, get together with our traffic and weather. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Safe gun storage is the duty of every gun owner. Just follow these 3 steps. 1. Store firearms unloaded and secured using a storage device. 2. Store and lock ammunition safely. And 3. Keep others from getting access at all times.
There is a safe gun storage option for every budget. To learn more about safely storing firearms, go to safegunstorage.texas.com for more information. Let's keep them safe, Texas. Brought to you by the Texas Department of Public Safety.
No Hollywood release can match it.
It's worth the wait. Who complains?
No television drama can equal it.
That was the scariest episode of your show.
And nothing else comes close to the drama.
This is unbelievable.
And you know what? Quite frankly, this scares people.
Join the conversation. We have seen this movie before. We know that it doesn't end well.
Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Hey Texas! This time of year is all about coming together and enjoying time-honored holiday traditions or starting your own. This winter, make sure your fellow Texans, especially those with a serious mental health condition, know how to stay informed and protected from increased COVID-19 risks associated with serious mental illness. Getting vaccinated is pro-Texan protection against COVID-19. Visit www.vaccines.gov/search to find a vaccine provider near you.
With an open channel,
I guess just try to keep channels open.
We welcome open-minded individuals.
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
With open arms.
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
For open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world. Wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at ktsmradio.com.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. When the prospect of divorce becomes a reality, you need a partner that you can count on. If you're a man in this situation, consider contacting Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men navigate complex legal matters for 30 years.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Dallas-Fort Worth area attorneys, a partner men can count on. Offices in Dallas, Fort Worth, and St. Louis. Online at CordellCordell.com. That's CordellCordell.com.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in. However you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main button, but you can also find us YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. A lot of discussion to be had there, and if you want to, whatever works for you, really. And if any one of the ones doesn't, one of the other ones probably can there. I mean, yeah, Twitter's more of like a DM, direct message respond kind of thing. Can't put it up on screen as easily, but I can still, try to check in on those and make sure we mention it if you got a burning comment, question, etc., those kind of things. So, yeah, there's a lot of ways you can talk about this here. And Airphone Holstein Rathler saying specifically on the border security immigration system, saying that when a migrant enters illegally, they are detained until their status is confirmed, allowed to enter or get deported. I think if this says of get deported, I think that's typo. Of get or get deported. That's not happening because the Biden administration will not enforce the law. That's what the Remain in Mexico policy was for. So there is, again, this is not to say that the law isn't being enforced here, because part of the problem is that the law is not really responsive to this situation, because we're talking about what, deportation hearings essentially take. It then goes to these non-judicial court. They're called courts, the immigration courts, but they're not under the judicial department. They're technically executive branch things, so they're not required to follow all the exact same policies and procedures. The idea just generally being to expedite things, but even then, it can still be years. And that's part of the problem when it comes down to, some of the reporting coming out even before the most recent part about Title 42, because even before the actual action being filed and the response to the Supreme Court there, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said that if and when Title 42 lifts, it will not translate to the border being open. That one they're saying here, just quoting directly, saying the fact is that the removal of Title 42 does not mean the border is open. Anyone who suggests otherwise simply doing the work of these smugglers who, again, are spreading misinformation and which is very dangerous. Sure, but I think that might be missing the point a little bit about that. Even the idea of being able to stay here for any length of time is also a kind of a part of the marketing plan. I mean, we've heard as much here. So essentially what there is being said by the administration at this point is that if Title 42, when it does go away again, as is now being more recent filings happening almost immediately before we went on air here today, that they're going to revert to Title 8. So Title 8, USC, I got it pulled up here somewhere, was able to just kind of take a quick look at it, because it's a full-on federal law. 8 USC United States Code, Title 8 Aliens and Nationality, specifically Chapter 12 Immigration and Nationality, and Subchapter 2 Immigration. And I mean, we're talking legalese here, so I'm not going to get too much into it, because I mean, I've been scrolling this whole time through that law. I've been talking since the start of this segment practically, and we're still going strong. So yeah, I'll call it homework if you feel masochistic about it. But some of the specifics about it are that it then goes essentially back into the court. So not asylum hearings necessarily. So there might be still an idea of expediting it more than the asylum hearings, which is its own policy and process, but it still ends up going into those courts here. So again, never particularly been a fan of Title 42 in that it has been kicking the can down the road for years at this point and not actually alleviating the situation. But I'm not sure this is going to be essentially any more responsive or useful or alleviating the situation, if that is going to be the primary focus of what the administration is putting forth here, because this is going to, as much as I've been able to look at, put more pressure on the immigration court system and going to continue seeing the backlogs. And I mean, by most of the stuff I'm looking at, including like say from the Congressional Research Service and others, that this could still end up taking years to process even through that way. So not so much about, credible fears and those, pre-interviews kind of things that go into the asylum process, but still, it got half the day about it. I will say that there is one aspect of Title 8 that is maybe not more effective. At the very least, okay, Title 42 is a one-line executable of if entering the country illegally, remove immediately. That's it. That's all it is. There is not even anything further with it. Title 8, if someone is processed and removed with that, they are usually ending up being unable to re-enter the United States for 5 years. Now, the problem I see with that is that, sure, making it so that they can't just come right back around, but again, we're talking about a whole shadow system in place, essentially, where we have, again, literal millions of people that have already been in the U.S. in some form of potentially being able to be removed under Title VIII, that if there isn't something done, and this is where the lawmaking really needs to come in, because if someone has been here, been building up a life, business, job, career, whatever, and managing to stay out of, any of the markers of the system, avoiding those kind of things, and not interacting with law enforcement, etc. What is the impetus for someone? I mean, just think about it if you were in that situation yourself. No judgment being passed. You find yourself, whatever the circumstances are, in that situation. What would be the impetus? What would be the benefit that you would see of saying, oh, yeah, no, totally, I should totally come forth and submit myself to this and upheave everything that has been going on already? Would you reasonably do that? And I have to come down with a probably not. Again, no saying about how you ended up getting in that situation, but just take, snap of the fingers, you're finding yourself into it. You'd probably be thinking, yeah, maybe not. I mean, it's been working so far, so to speak, from the individual point of view. So that's why, if there's not actually an off-ramp, so to speak, here, I know legalization is a fraught conversation, and I'm not even sure it should technically be part of that, but the idea of there being, say, penalties, other things that make it more reasonable to actually have people come out of this shadow system and enter into the full legal system as we do have it, is, I think, the most important conversation to be had in the long term. In the immediate term, again, just pulling back up those pictures that are really on the top of my mind coming out of today, including what our news partners at KFOX 14 reporting that the Texas Military Department is putting forth as a training exercise, but the straining of this concertina wire along the banks of the Rio Grande and some sections of the El Paso border region, I don't see that going away anytime soon. This feels substantially different to, we've talked previously in the past about there being different things going on along, particularly like the bridges in El Paso, about there being, shutdowns of the bridges, maybe in response to like protests that were happening on the Mexican side of things. That has been documented to happen. But even then, before El Paso was the locus of this issue, as it is now, there were in most recent years training, quote unquote, training going on where they were deploying, like, say, concertina wire across the bridge itself here, even if there was no immediate indication of something happening there. There were some conversations about security theater at this point in time, but that was also demonstrably temporary. The barbed wire in those cases didn't stay up, but what we are seeing today and the preparation for it, this doesn't feel like it's going to be gone tomorrow, I got to admit, particularly since we got this whole influx situation with Title 42 going on. So this is so much to say, yeah, even if we do revert to Title VIII, it's very interesting that the administration and the White House spokesperson ended up bringing up the idea of the communication and how the cartels are putting forth the idea of it is, yeah, it's very interesting that they're at least recognizing that, because if you're at least thinking about the way that there is this marketing campaign that goes on when it comes to the entire cartel coyote side of things, I got to say, saying that we're going to, removal for 5 years. But again, you got to be thinking about how do you counteract that narrative when you're not necessarily, what are the outreach efforts happening at that point? Are we actively, like buying billboards or whatever it is going on down there? Dropping leaflets, which I think would be probably the level that's needed at this point in time to counteract what has already been the narrative, obviously being put forth to this point about, go to the U.S., you get everything you want, that the cartels are very interested in putting forth because it gets them more money. And for those saying that, well, okay, if you're worried about it, we got some advanced services, we'll smuggle you across with the not exactly, I'm sure there's not contracts here, but if there were, this would be in the deep fine print of, and then we may hold you for ransom for later on. This is not a good system. We are not in a good place when it comes to the actions that are essentially having to be taken at this point. That, seeing concertina wire strung across the border in different areas is not something good. I'm going to say the fact that response or reaction is even being called for, much less so, because there's been a million different indicators and ways we've gotten up into this situation, but getting out of it gets a little cloudy for me, wondering how is this, I could just off ramp from the situation itself, much less the long-term policy issues. So We'll see what this next week brings. Again, we've got those colder temperatures. We'll be hearing from our news partners there at KFOX 14 about the forecast coming up for this end of the week, as kind of adding another level of issue with this whole situation. So that's so much to say that I don't see anything simple coming out of this, but there definitely needs to be probably more done. It's interesting the way that the, again, Texas Military Department, Texas Department of Public Safety, state troopers have been taking so far. Yeah, there's a lot more problems I think we're probably going to be encountering. I think this is going to get worse before it gets better, to be perfectly honest with you. So before we get too much further into that, we also got elections and things like that to mention here. So got to take that next break of this hour right now. Again, you are tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Phone calls a little bit later. Still not open with those just yet, but if you want to leave your comment there, can certainly do so. The number to call, well, again, a little bit later, but comments coming through on the social media, checking on with some more of those here in just a bit. But in any case, back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. Texas National Guard troops and Texas State Troopers conducted training exercises on the border near downtown El Paso today. Texas Governor Greg Abbott deployed 400 Texas National Guard troops to El Paso to assist in the humanitarian migrant crisis. Additional DPS troopers have also arrived in our city. Both the Texas National Guard and troopers are set to provide safety and security on the ground and across the community. City officials say the Texas Guard personnel are providing humanitarian support to migrants. They're providing logistical support and processing travel for migrants as well. And El Paso police officials say a 25-year-old man has been arrested and accused of stabbing his grandfather to death with a fork. Officers arrested 25-year-old Kevin Joe Robles. The stabbing happened on the 300 block of Colmillo last Wednesday. The man who died was identified as 81-year-old Juan Julian Macias Salas. I'm Iraca Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Well, we'll start with the Patriot Freeway northbound at Trans Mountain Road. Police call this an assistance call on the Trans Mountain exit. Police cars are at the scene, so watch for that. Accident shoulder blocked at I-10 eastbound at Yarborough. No lanes are blocked, but be aware of that. Rescue units are on the scene. Larry Aarons, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We've got another cold night ahead of us tonight as temperatures cool back to near freezing, even below freezing in those outlying areas. So we start off cold on your Wednesday. Temperatures during the day should become warmer as we get into Thursday. And then by Thursday night, our winter storm arrives, bringing with it some very strong, gusty, and very cold Arctic air. Log on to KFOXTV.com for your latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
Hey El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. The Christmas season is here, and this is our gift to you. We're offering our biggest discounts of the year on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory.
Get our biggest discounts of the year and exceptional trade-in values during the Big Finish sales event at Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. For a limited time, get $5,000 below MSRP and super low 4.9% APR for 72 months on new 2022 Ram 1500 Low-Star models. $5,750 below MSRP on new 2022 Durango SUVs. $4,000 off new 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokees. All with no payments for 90 days. Worried about your trade or credit? Don't sweat it. Our lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 4.9% APR, 1606 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso. Weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you. Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And let's talk El Paso.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
This report is sponsored by Stand Up to Cancer.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're getting to there. The phone line's not open quite yet. At least we'll do it at the end of this segment, as we usually do, even if we've been not quite true to form in the most recent days, but getting back on track with that here. So phone calls here in just a bit. But, of course, a lot of conversation going on with what's going on the border, the issues, all this stuff going on there. And some of the conversation, including anytime we're talking about more militarization of the border, like, okay, I'm going to be hard-pressed to say, given the total amount of people that we've been seeing crossing and the issues being caused by it, that more of a presence on the border has not necessarily been necessary. But when you take it that much further and you start talking about literal invasion and the repelling efforts of it, like John Browson saying, at 50 cal machine guns and claymores installed on the north side of the Rio Grande, what exactly do you think is going to be the outcome of that? Because if it's going to be the wholesale slaughter of men, women, and children here, yeah, we're not talking about border security and immigration issues anymore. We're talking about a de facto declaration of war. So, yeah, I mean, we've had previous conversation about the idea of, installing sniper towers, and none of that makes a damn bit of sense for the situation we're in. We're talking about policy issues. And if you're really thinking that the United States can be overthrown by, women and children and, family units and men coming across, yeah, there's the whole conversation about military-aged men. But seriously? That if you think that's what it takes to overthrow the United States, I think you have a lot less faith in it than you actually espouse to, because, yeah, that's more than a little bit of issues there. And if you're unhappy about me saying that that's a bad idea, I got to wonder what you would want me to say in the alternative here. And Miri comment saying that, the snowstorm forecasted for a large portion of the U.S. will wreak havoc with flights. The numbers at all airports will increase, and the airport will reach capacity for days. There has to be a plan in place for the anticipated weather. I mean, that's been one of the things that Texas Governor Greg Abbott has been talking primarily about. That's you might wonder why he hasn't been in this area. He's been very much frantic about what is going on with the rest of Texas. We are anticipating potentially coming up towards the weekend and over the holiday, actually getting down into the single digits for a decent portion of the state. And so I think very top of mind, as it's already been the conversation as we're getting close to the legislative session, has been about the rest of the power grid in Texas. Again, one of the reasons I'm very happy to live in El Paso, despite recent difficulties and issues that we're seeing on the streets, is that we are really getting into, there's been some things put into place, some policies ever since, roughly about 2 years ago when there was the winter storm that caused the blackouts. But I can see that being a concern point here. One more local aspect of that I will say that has been brought forth by Governor Greg Abbott is essentially a demand for more action happening ahead of this. Again, I guess we're going with polar vortex. This is a statement that he put out saying that this terrible crisis for border communities in Texas is a catastrophe of your own making, reads a letter. These communities in the state are ill-equipped to do the job assigned to the federal government, house the thousands of migrants flooding into the country every day. With the perilous temperatures moving into the area, many of these migrants are at risk of freezing to death on city streets. The need to address the crisis is not the job of border states like Texas. Instead, the Constitution dictates that it is your job, Mr. President, to defend the borders of our country, regulate our nation's immigration, and mandate those who seek seek refuge here. Part of a larger letter, the tweet he put out about it, saying from Governor Greg Abbott a little bit earlier today, as a matter of fact, saying, I'm demanding that President Biden deploy federal assets to our border as cold weather approaches Texas. Our border communities are ill-equipped to handle the record levels of migrants who risk freezing to death on city streets. Biden's inaction is putting lives at risk, end quote, from that from the tweet there from the Greg Abbott _TX account. I mean, it would be, I've been saying that we probably need more resources in this, but again, some of this things that he's actually talking about, Governor Greg Abbott, that is, for the rest of the state are, he's been holding news conferences in other parts. I think he was, if I'm not mistaken, in Fort Worth. Let me double check that actually, because let's just say I don't think too much about Fort Worth, among other things. Austin. Sorry, the State Operations Center in Austin is where he has been. Tomorrow is going to be holding that news conference to talk joint with the Texas Division of Emergency Management, NIMKID, Public Utility Commission, and Electric Reliability Council of Texas. ERCOT is the name that I think a lot of people got very familiar with, and serious implications politically for him specifically, but also to like everyday people if there were to be anything near the scale of what happened in the rest of Texas. Again, we're in a different grid system here, and knock on wood, we won't see any kind of similar issues. We wouldn't if it affects the rest of Texas. It wouldn't necessarily hit here either, but that's more of an issue. But that's why, if you're wondering why the governor hasn't been here as much, that's what been, maybe I would argue, a little bit more top of his mind here. But I promised I would talk about elections here, and it does have more implications for maybe some of these situations. At the very least, Tony Gonzalez, a Texas representative, Republican representing the Texas 23rd Congressional District, which is the entire eastern border of El Paso, a good chunk of El Paso County, don't get me wrong, a lot of the eastern parts of the county, unurbanized area, and again, covers the entire eastern border of El Paso County to kind of the outskirts of San Antonio. It's worth looking up. It kind of looks like an amoeba, like some kind of, super comic book monster about to engulf the city, but that's a congressional map drawing for you. Point is that he has been very much, sending some letters, including one that was written and co-signed by Democrat Henry Cuellar, representative from Texas, as well as the senators from Texas, John Cornyn, as well as the senator for West Virginia, Democrat there. So interesting conversations to be continuing on there, including some video that he says he shot over the weekend that claims to show what is going on inside, actually, some of the processing centers in our region, shot on Friday is what he says. You can see some of that up there over on his Twitter, posted up there, and it's been getting play on some of the national outlets as well. Saying that on Friday there was 4,600 in federal custody in the actual Border Patrol Central Processing Center, and that the capacity was only about 1,000 and change. So 4,600 versus capacity for 1,040. Yeah, it wasn't a good situation then, and has only kind of continued to evolve since then. Again, a lot more physical barriers we're looking at, but one of the things that was very interesting to me that was said in the aftermath of the elections by Tony Gonzalez. There was, of course, some of the reporting going on about what was going on in the runoffs here, and notably, again, just in case anyone had missed what we were talking about there, we are looking at District 1, Brian Kennedy going into handily win over Annalisa Cordova-Silverstein with about just shy of 70% of the vote to Cordova-Silverstein's 30% and change, and then I'm not necessarily going to call it an upset, but in a definite change of fortunes for the incumbent Claudia Lizette Rodriguez, being defeated by current and soon-to-be former state rep Art Fierro, 56% to Fierro to Claudia Lizette Rodriguez. This is 43%, and just to round it out here, Chris Canales going on to win for District 8 with about 63 and change percent of the vote over Bettina Olivares' 36.6%. But we've mentioned that at least the start of this week here, but one of the more interesting things that was pointed out to me is that in response to at least one of the bits of reporting on this tweets going out here, and I'm just going to read this verbatim, Tony Gonzalez at Tony Gonzalez 4TX account saying, "We haven't seen the last of Claudia Rodriguez, period." The actual punctuation mark there with then hashtag TX16. So that is, well, I think setting up maybe considerations for the next congressional challenge. Of course, we've just gotten past this one here, but as much as elections never flip and end anymore, which I will admit both being excited and mildly exhausted about, but hey, I do what we do. So I can't say that I can't say I'm totally opposed to it, the idea of it never ending, even if it might be not the best thing in aggregate. Any point is that's kind of saying that this might be the consideration being made for, again, the soon-to-be former city council representative to potentially be setting up at least involvement, but I think that could also be pretty easily read as a potential future run for the Texas 16th congressional district, which, for those of you playing along at home, is, of course, held by, again, recently reelected for the next 2-year term of office, El Paso Democrat Congresswoman Veronica Escobar. So, I mean, we've seen some frequent flyers and frequent faces and not necessarily a lot of success that has been previously going on when it comes to the challenges being seen in the Texas 16th congressional district. So I could see the idea of infusing some new blood, focus, those kind of things seems desirable. There wasn't a whole lot of national funding that came into this race here. I mean, there was not no funding being gained by the particularly the Irina Mendadas Jackson campaign this most recent time, but she's had a few tries, a few times in the tilting when it comes to this specific race. But there wasn't a whole lot, not much national investment from the RNC or those kind of committees here, even on the other side of it, frankly, because it was seen as pretty safe. So shaking it up, I could see being a very strong potential going forth here. That being said, we want to take that next break right now, and we'll go ahead and open up the phone lines as we do during this point during the program. So if you want to call in right now, phone lines are open, and that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound at Yarborough, all lanes have reopened except for the far right lane, so the delays are getting a little bit better. Still 25-minute delays on the 10 westbound from the Gateway to Yarborough. Northbound Zaragoza between the Loop and Montana, that's an 18-minute delay. And southbound on Global Reach, stop and go from the Spur down to Montana Avenue, 18-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International.
We've all felt the impact of rising food prices. For families in poverty, they're facing malnutrition and even death. You can feed a family for a month with your $50 donation to Compassion International. Just text the word radio to 97646.
Guys, 2022's been a roller coaster year, so spoil her this Christmas by giving her the next best thing to wearing nothing at all with soft, silky, naturally nude pajamas exclusively from Pajamagram. Sensuous and smooth, naturally nude pajamas feel just like her own bare skin. Even more alluring than lingerie, the texture and touch of these pajamas is so seductive that you'll both love the feel of them. She'll love the feeling of wearing next to nothing at all, and you'll love the way they look. Best of all, Pajamagram does the wrapping for you with free gift packaging. Order today, and Pajamagram will also include a free matching naturally nude nightie with the purchase of naturally nude pajamas. That is free gift packaging and a free naturally nude nightie when you order today. Just go to Pajamagram.com. It's fast, easy, and delivery by Christmas is guaranteed. That's Pajamagram.com.
Nancy Grace here. Big news. Brand new cold case podcast, Zone 7 with Cheryl McCollum. You get to work a cold case with investigator Cheryl McCollum, family members, detectives, trusted criminal justice pros who make up her, quote, Zone 7.
This ain't just a podcast, honey, but a war room.
Listen to Zone 7 with Cheryl McCollum now on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
New on Curiosity Stream. Meet the man who dove deep and changed modern nautical engineering and warfare forever on John Philip Holland, inventor of the submarine. And in 200 AD, before modern medicine, a Chinese doctor performed life-saving surgeries. How'd he do it? And how has surgery evolved since? It's the new series, The Past, Present, and Future. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. And for a limited time, get 40% off our annual $1 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Hey Texas, did you know that individuals living with serious mental illness are more susceptible to severe COVID-19? Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov for vaccination resources to help reduce the risk and keep yourself and your fellow Texans informed and protected this holiday season. Stay healthy, Texas.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, being on it, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one, but also Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And a lot of conversation going on there about the situation we're looking at. Dropping those likes and reacts that we do appreciate it. Eric McNabb, Jill Burstein, Robbie Flores, Flaco Menace, Monica Cervantes. And again, that's also primarily from the Facebook. But if you want to get at us, I mean, we can pop up some of the comments coming in from like the Twitch and the YouTube. And the comment saying, if this is what it looks like here when San Diego has a plan in place, I can't imagine conditions without one in place. Yeah, I guess that has been part of the conversation. I mean, going back to when Mayorkas was in town last week, Alejandro Mayorkas, as Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, saying that we've been planning for this for months now. And that leads to the question of, this is the plan to just kind of let this happen the way it's unfolding? Because, again, I would be hard-pressed to find a reasonable person, anyway, that thinks that the way this situation unfolding is a good thing. I mean, whatever spin trying to be put onto it here. RJ also asking over on the YouTube saying the influx is already straining resources in Denver. New York City is asking for help among other cities. El Paso is going to put 20,000 a day, where that's a higher estimate than I've heard so far. I've heard maybe about 5,000 to 6,000, and that is if Title 42 does eventually finally end. Again, it's mixed indications coming out from the White House, frankly, today, both in the statements that are being made about defaulting back to Title 8, but then also what is going on with the Supreme Court filing with it. So I guess I don't really have a clear answer on what might actually be happening there, and some others commenting over there as well, including Invisible Stranger on the YouTube. They'll have for more interesting names over there. So if you're wanting to do it that way, again, just as long as you're making sincere comments, actually want to talk about the issues that are affecting us here in the borderland, more than welcome to do so. So let's go ahead and get on the phone lines there. I do believe we have John in Central along with us here right now. John, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure thing. What's on your mind?
Okay, thanks. Yesterday afternoon, your first call, I think if I remember correctly, talked about that area there where the illegal aliens are coming across and camping out. Okay. Have you? Well, it's on the corner of Santa Fe and Overland. I think that's where the bus stop is around that area.
Yeah, kind of north of where like the fence is for the downtown area that has been the part of the litigation going on involving the arena, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes. Have you gotten a chance to drive by there at all?
The Greyhound bus station, I haven't seen it myself personally, but our news partners and other reporting sources in town have been taking a decent amount of pictures to show what has been going on in that area. Definitely.
Your caller told us about a very disturbing scene that he saw. I also was there this afternoon between 2 and 3, drove by there. Very disturbing. This is what I'll tell you, give you a description right quick. Ladies and little children were just there laying around on the sidewalk. Men were just milling around. Most of the men had a lost look in their face, But I noticed one individual. He seemed to be the boss of this group there. I would say it was a good 200 men, women, and children there. One of them really stood out to me. He looked like he was a leader of a group there, and it looked to me like he was a gang member. He probably had enough experience to kind of know the difference between a regular working father and a gang member. He just, as soon as I was driving by there, slowly, looking, there's no harm in driving by and looking around from my car window. He just stared at the car. And as soon as I passed by, he just kept looking like intimidation. He wasn't trying to intimidate me. I had a passenger in my car,
Mm-hmm.
And then I drove up a second time, and the same individual did the same thing. He just stared, just kept on looking at the car. This is what's to me, this administration is importing criminal activity. Okay. I'm not talking about the women and children. I'm talking about these individuals, 18 to about 25-year-olds. Yes, I feel for these individuals, migrants. Well, most people like to call them migrants. As soon as they cross the border over, they become illegal aliens, okay, legally, okay. Now, this is the thing. I feel for the women and children that was there. It's the males that are coming across. I feel sorry for wherever they're their destination here in the U.S. Little towns are going to start experiencing gang activities. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think that's, just given the, ideas and the numbers that we do have, the vast majority of those coming across here are coming from awful situations that they're seeking to flee because of it. But the fact of the matter is that the situation and the system, or lack thereof, that we have set up when it comes to this is not necessarily, if there were the way it was supposed to be, we've had this conversation going on for years now about there being, these full, reasonable fear hearings. There's a different phrase for it, but that's the one that comes to mind at the moment. Credible fear hearings, then for moving on and justifying the actual, the actual process to go through the asylum claims. Not saying that's not happening at all, but you can't convince me that it's happening for each of these cases where it is being claimed when we're dealing with thousands a day and overstripping of even the containment facilities for that to be anything more than if it's happening in name, a rubber stamp at this point, meaning it's being kicked down the road here. So the fact of the matter is there might be some basic information happen, but if someone is coming across saying, well, I don't have any documentation, it's all been taken from me, what is there to be done administratively on that here? So tell you what, I want to address your question further here, but we got to take that break right now. So do appreciate the point in the call. We will talk about this further. Just got to hit the top of the hour here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. So with that, we are going to take that top of the hour break, and coming out of this, more discussion on these points and more phone calls as well. Again, if you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
That earlier multi-vehicle crash, I-10 westbound at Yarborough, is cleared. All lanes are back open. There's still 6-minute delays, a lot better than it was a half hour ago. I-10 westbound between Zaragoza and Yarborough. Montana Avenue eastbound, Geronimo to Lee Trevino is a 6-minute delay. Northbound Zaragoza between the Loop and Montana Avenue is an 18-minute delay. And Global Reach still slow southbound from the Spur down to Montana Avenue, 12-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. The Christmas season is here, and this is our gift to you. We're offering our biggest discounts of the year on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory.
Get our biggest discounts of the year and exceptional trade-in values during the Big Finish sales event at Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. For a limited time, get $5,000 below MSRP and super low 4.9% APR for 72 months on new 2022 Ram 1500 Low Star models. $5,750 below MSRP on on new 2022 Durango SUVs. $4,000 off new 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokees. All with no payments for 90 days. Worried about your trade or credit? Don't sweat it. Our lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less at Selling Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun. At I-10 at Selling Park Drive or online at sellingparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 4.9% APR, 1606 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The White House is formally asking the U.S. Supreme Court to deny efforts to keep Title 42 in place. However, it's also asking for a delay until next week in any decision on the request by states to keep it in place if denied. Ukrainian President Zelensky is expected to make a trip to Washington, D.C. this week. Reports say it could come Wednesday as Capitol Hill will host Zelensky for a joint session of Congress. He's expected to thank lawmakers for the billions of dollars in aid towards the Ukrainian war effort and could push for more funding. At least 2 people are dead, according to the Humboldt County, California Sheriff's Office, after a large earthquake struck early this morning. 11 others are reported injured. The state's MyShake app sent out a warning to users just 10 seconds before the magnitude 6.4 quake hit at around 2:30 a.m. It struck off the coast of California in an area where 3 tectonic plates converge. Moscow police may have located the vehicle they were looking for in connection with the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. Brad Ford reports.
Police were looking for a white Hyundai Elantra. They reviewed 22,000 vehicles and may have located the car they wanted in Eugene, Oregon. Detectives are trying to determine whether it's the one seen in the area of the crime scene. Police have also reviewed a video taken the night of the murders where the name Adam was mentioned. They've talked with that person and they're cooperating with the investigation.
The DEA says it seized more than 10,000 pounds of fentanyl powder and more than 50 million illegal fentanyl tablets this year. Its administrator said that's enough to, quote, kill everyone in the United States. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell is backing House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy to be elected Speaker.
Absolutely. I'm pulling for Kevin. I hope he makes it.
You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. All eyes are on a Fulton County, Georgia grand jury as it's expected to issue findings soon on whether former President Donald Trump and his supporters broke laws to try and overturn the 2020 election in Georgia. According to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the grand jury will make recommendations for the next steps to be taken when they issue their final report. Natural gas consumption across the European Union fell by 20% in the August to November period compared with average levels for the same months from 2017 to 2021. In Brussels, Rosie Burchard says the EU has been racing to cut gas usage as it navigates an energy crisis.
European Union member states agreed to voluntarily reduce consumption of natural gas by 15% until next March. New data released on Tuesday by the EU Statistics Agency shows 19 of the 27 EU countries have so far achieved the planned cut. Measures taken at national level include dimming the lights or capping heating in public buildings. In 2021, the EU relied on Russia for around 40% of its natural gas imports. That figure is now well below 10%.
The latest Whitney Houston film is about to be released. Jennifer Pulsoni has more.
Whitney Houston's biopic, I Want to Dance with Somebody, hits theaters Wednesday. Actress Naomi Ackie plays Houston in the film written by Anthony McCartan, who also wrote Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie that focuses on Houston's early life in New Jersey and profound career until her tragic death in 2012 comes after a 2018 documentary entitled Whitney.
NASA says it has pinpointed the coldest spot on Earth. Using NASA Earth satellites, researchers discovered a high ridge on the East Antarctic Plateau has the lowest temperatures on the planet. NASA said temperatures at the spot can get as low as 135 degrees below zero. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at crohnscolitisfoundation.org.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
iHeartRadio's 'Twas the Night Before Christmas podcast is here, just in the St. Nick of time, and in immersive 3D audio, bringing you closer to the story than ever before. Featuring John Bon Jovi, Elton John, Santa Claus, and more.
'Twas the night before Christmas when all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse.
Grab your headphones, open the free iHeartRadio app, and enjoy the timeless Christmas classic read by your favorites on one of the most magical nights of the year. Download the free iHeartRadio app for all the music, radio, and podcasts you love this holiday season.
Being aware of the world around you is important.
When it comes to news, yes, I am.
So we're feeding your need to know 24/7 at the top and bottom of the hour.
I like to know what's going on in my locality, abroad.
Events of the world.
Fairly so. Yeah, I'm pretty connected.
Or down the street.
For the most part, I know what's going on.
You know, I need to be aware and what to look out for, and I'm real cautious, so yeah, I need to have that.
It's what we do. News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, and either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk is where you can find us to see the program. We got like graphics and stuff that come up here, including the pictures of the situation going on at the border today. The training exercise / stringing of concertina wire along some of the soft banks of the river is something to be seen going on in our region as of today. Again, a lot of anticipation around that. Whatever the hell is going to go on with Title 42 or the reversion at the administration has put it back to Title 8, neither of which, frankly, I think are going to be a solution for the current situation. I think we need to look at radical changes to what has been put into place here to be more responsive to the current situation, whether or not there's actually the appetite or plan for that kind of thing. I mean, my crystal ball is as cloudy as ever here, but promise I will continue one thing we're talking about right before the break with our previous caller about the individuals coming across, him saying that he had driven by, like, I think the Greyhound bus station he was referring to there at near San Antonio and Santa Fe, and the individuals waiting here. Look, and I don't subscribe to the idea that everyone seeking to cross the country is immediately suspect or immediately going to be interested in nefarious goals. I mean, if that were the case, I mean, even the pre-part of this, the 11 million number that I know is outdated, but it's the last one I really have concretely in my mind of those being here without authorization, which by also the way, I know this is not often talked about, but not all of those people crossed the border like this. A lot of them, I mean, it's estimated up to about 50% of that number just like got visas and never left kind of situation. So that also needs to be considered whenever we're talking about comprehensive immigration and border security reform. And yes, I do put those together because I really don't see anything happening individually without there being some kind of grand deal, whether or not that's actually going to be possible to happen. Also not holding my breath on that one. But point is that even if, again, I don't subscribe to the idea of immediate nefarious intent unless proven otherwise, but it as having a lack of control. I mean, at this day and age, given the technology, infrastructure, information that we have, there should not be a circumstance where someone is crossing and is not known about in some way in our area. So that's where the border security part of it comes in. And I do see the potential for that to be used by nefarious actors, by those that do want to cause harm, seeing a vulnerability, so to speak. So that is, I mean, all the times we've seen major, either terrorism or, national security issues come up, it usually comes from a lack of imagination, not even necessarily something where, hey, we tried something and it just didn't work, but it just wasn't even considered here. And I see that being a possibility, or at the very least an avenue that is left open if not able to do it here. And if you really think that a screening process is happening in any kind of concerted way beyond all right, you're not actively stabbing someone at the moment, that's fine here. Like, if you really think that the credible fears hearings are happening in any kind of substantive way at this point in time, I got to wonder what substantive actually means to you right now when we're dealing with thousands every day. So, and if you call the reasonable, I mean, if you just want to label things and be thinking that that's a way, I mean, it's kind of like going and taking a defecation in the middle of the room and everyone else leaving the room and saying like, oh, look, yeah, you can't argue against that, when everyone's just disgusted and not wanting to engage with that. If you want to talk about the actual issues, you're welcome to, but otherwise we're going to move on the other way of it. I mean, some of the possibilities here, I mean, Eric von Holstein-Rathlow saying if you make a living burglarizing people in Venezuela, not that there's, for the average person, that much left to steal anymore, but wouldn't you want to come to target a rich country like the U.S.? And I'm not even necessarily talking about that. I mean, people looking to make their living from nefarious means. I mean, the cartels exist. They don't even have to come all this way here. But if there's someone that was actually wanting to cause harm or specifically target the U.S., I mean, look at what has been going on in Ukraine for years. To go a completely different example, we saw essentially what the Russian government was doing at that point in time, saying, oh, no, they're just concerned people that just happen to be wearing Russian military uniforms that happen to have the patches just basically removed here. But they're just going in there because they're concerned about, I think they're putting forth the whole Russian-speaking groups kind of mentality there. That ended up being, oh, no, these were totally basically paramilitary sponsored by that. Not saying that is happening in this case. I have no evidence, but when there's a lack of control, these are potential avenues that could be opened up here, or even just more traditional like terrorist attacks kind of thing. And without that being locked down, again, how much longer? I mean, the hindsight 2020 rule is often put in place here. Is it going to have to be until someone actually exploits it that way for us to have to consider it that way? And I hope that wouldn't be the case. Anyway, let's go back to those phone lines tonight. Right now, we do have on the line with us, we do have Ben on the east side with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Andrew, I just wanted to ask you something. How many American citizens have to be harmed before we get serious about defending our border?
I mean, that's kind of the question I was, I guess, kind of getting up to there. And I mean, I guess defense is getting into maybe a slightly different way, but control over it and knowing everyone that is crossing in a very substantive way is what I'm most concerned with, because otherwise, yeah, it opens up avenues that I don't see being able to be dealt with until it's kind of essentially too late.
It's the defense of our borders. We are being invaded by the rest of the world. We have the right to defend our border. One of the things that is really great, I mean, I applaud Abbott for putting out the Constantine wire. Make sure that these people can't get across. Okay, I mean, at least try to make some effort and everything. Unlike what the federal government is doing, we've got to get serious about this. This is going. I mean, if I'm a nefarious individual, which a lot of these people are from, Venezuela, they've been let out of jail, told to come to the United States. If they come back to their country, they will be put back in jail and everything. So now they're here. They are criminals, and we're letting them into our country. What do you think is going to happen eventually when somebody decides that they want a car so they can take the car from here to Denver or someplace where, hijacking cars. The people in South El Paso afraid to come out of their houses at night because they don't know whether or not they're going to be robbed. They're going to be, how many American people are going to have to be either harmed or or made to feel unsafe in their homes and everything, before we actually get serious about helping our citizens.
I mean, okay, I'll agree with you on the point that a lack of control at the border is not a net benefit. And the situation as it exists is, again, anyone saying that this is a good thing economic impact of the idea of it aside, and even then, in the interim, I think the studies that are being posted about are very much longer ranging and not in the current situation. There's no one reasonable out there would consider saying that what is happening in our region right now is a net benefit or a net good thing in short, medium, or even, I would argue, long term. But the point of the fact is that we have not, I mean, if this was any significant subset of the populations we are seeing, and yeah, I'm aware of the, stories about, the countries emptying their jails because they don't want to deal with them anymore here. And there have been specific examples of individuals who are accused of crimes in other countries fleeing from that have been, I mean, I get the releases from DHS, CBP, etc. when they specifically apprehend those types of individuals. They are the vast minority of cases. Now, the fact of the matter that can still happen or be a part of it is a reason for concern, because if there is this avenue, I mean, anytime that you've got things in the shadows, so to speak, things not going through official channels or having any kind of actual control on it, it does therefore engender this kind of thing. I see no particular evidence that is what is immediately or significantly happening in this case. But again, lack of imagination having been a significant source of issues that have been problems and attacks on this country in the past, I don't find it particularly advantageous to allow this to continue into the long term.
Well, God help you, or me, or anything else. Somebody that is the first one that gets killed or robbed or maimed or something like that from one of these individuals, and it's going to start. And there's no question about it. One other thing I wanted to get across, because Tucker Carlson brought this this last night. I thought it was very interesting. Did you hear about an event that was held at the Civic Center on December 10th of this year?
The Civic Center here in El Paso?
Here in El Paso.
You're going to have to be, I mean, there's constant events going on there. Which one are you addressing specifically?
Drag Queen Christmas. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to look it up, should see the videos of what goes on in these shows. Drag queens showing not only their butt cracks, but also their blank holes and their penises and their fake breast. This is a show that was open to all ages. This was a show that if any parents brought their kids to these shows, and you can see it online, what goes on in these things. This is one of the most disgusting displays it's just a debacle. And if we had that allowed in our city, I was not aware of it, but they sure did have it. It was December 10th at the Civic Center, Drag Queen Christmas, and all you have to do is look and see what went on there.
I see the listing of it on Facebook on the El Paso Live page. Looks like it happened, maybe if it did happen December 10th, it was also happening December 9th here. And I'll just say this. I mean, I've seen
you would bring your children to this thing?
No, definitely would not be doing that or anything involving adult entertainment of any kind here. I mean, I guess I'd have the same kind of reaction of like, a kindergarten class being taken to a strip club. Of the hell are we doing with that? So yeah, I cannot say that I would definitely put my own kids in there, but
why would the El Paso Civic Center have any entertainment like this? Makes no sense.
I mean, okay, if you got issues with drag shows here, you're free and welcome to not go and participate in themselves here, as I find myself, for the most part, not doing. But also, let's not pretend that there's a level of control over all entertainment. I mean, there's plenty of stuff that happens in town that I don't exactly like or agree with, but the idea of saying, and therefore it should not be allowed to happen unless there's like proximate harm able to be showed here is not how I go about it here. So again, free to make your own decisions or, even speak out about it, but saying that how can this be allowed is a different conversation entirely here. So we got to take that next break now. We got a little bit far afield here, but I appreciate the point in the call. We got to take that break in order to get back on track and back with things. So go in and take that. If you want to get on the line, that number to do so here is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Still stop and go on the 10 westbound this afternoon from Yarborough to the 54 Patriot with 16-minute delays. Traffic slow, not as bad on the I-10 eastbound side from Trans Mountain over the Patriots, an 8-minute delay. Injury accident, McRae, northbound at the 10 Gateway, and a crash with injuries, Montana Avenue at Limerick. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Ad Council. Attention thrifters. Those awesome finds you get at Goodwill are even awesomer than you realize. Because as a nonprofit, Goodwill uses your purchases to fund job training and more in our neighborhoods. Learn more at goodwill.org. Sponsored by the Ad Council.
New on Curiosity Street. Get ready for the best of the best with our 100 Days of Curiosity, featuring fan favorite titles like Light on Earth with Sir David Attenborough. Join me on a journey like no other. Stephen Hawking's favorite places.
It's a crazy world out there.
The History of Home with Nick Offerman.
Not my home, just homes. Other people's homes.
And many more. It's 100 Days of Curiosity. And for a limited time, get 40% off our annual plan. That's just $1 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Hey, Texas, there are approximately 950,000 individuals in Texas living with a serious mental illness, which is an individual risk factor for severe COVID-19. If you or someone you know is living with a serious mental health condition, such as schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, or bipolar disorder, make sure they know where to go this holiday season to stay safe and healthy. Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov to find resources and location information for vaccine providers near you. Stay healthy, Texas.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-838-4715 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-838-4715. That's 800-838-4715. What do you have to lose? Call 800-838-4715. Again, 800-838-4715.
Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages like Ida Basic Gardner is. That's on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, but also got other comments and people tuning in, chiming in over on, like, say, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. So, again, whatever works for you, it's the right place for you to be as we continue our mission to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland. And RJ, okay, just one more thing on the drag queen issue. I guess I don't have an issue with drag shows in general. I don't necessarily be interested in going with them at all. But I guess the point he's bringing up here, saying that the issue is drag queen shows that aren't age restricted to 18 and older or 21 if drinks are served. Since when do we allow kids in strip clubs with DQs or XX women? I think meant XX error, saying chromosome-wise. In any case here, yeah, I mean, content of sexual nature and generally is regulated to be those that are, you know, of age. And so I guess if you're concerned about that, sure. And I will say, just reading further from the description available that's on Facebook there about the the show, the Drag Queen Christmas that happened at the El Paso Convention Center, saying all ages welcome, but remember this is the Naughty Tour. Goes on to say this is an all ages show, warning adult comedy. That does seem a little bit incongruous to us here. And if I was taking someone to, again, not that I would book for a drag show, not my thing, but no problem necessarily with those that do. But if it's not being, I guess, labeled correctly, anyone stumbling across this that wouldn't want to, I mean, I guess I have the same kind of issue with the way sometimes YouTube Kids works. Again, not a situation I've had to involve here. No kids in my life that I have that level of oversight with at any point. But if there's content that is not appropriate for them being presented as that, it can be like stumbled upon or end up being with them that kind of without your notice, knowledge, or full understanding beforehand, that does become an issue for me. I will say that here. So let's go ahead and get back to those phone lines now. We do have Jerry on the northwest side of town here with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, have you ever heard of a couple named Ploward and Piven?
Yes, that gets brought up from time to time in the comments as well.
Okay. When you overrun something, right, when you make it impossible for it to be controlled, it does hurt the nation. And you had an individual was claiming that we may lose our country because of this. And I agree with that to a certain point. There's also something that was called jihad, cultural jihad.
Mm-hmm.
You ever hear of that?
I mean, it sounds pretty self-explanatory, but go ahead. What was the point you wanted to make about it?
Okay, well, that's where you put so many people in there, and they go with their own culture, bring their culture into the new nation that they're taking over, and basically push out the old culture. So when that happens, and you get a lot of people in, because we're getting somewhere around 1,400, 2,000 people a day, correct? Coming across the border.
In our region, I mean, those were the stats that were coming out as of last week. The total number that was seen, at least by the numbers reported on by the city of El Paso, was just about over 10,000 released into the community as of the full calendar week last week.
Okay, now was that just 1 week, or is that for the year?
That was 10,000 last week, and double check that with you right now. From this is the one on the El Paso, Texas.gov/migrant-crisis, the migrant crisis dashboard they got there, and so these are just the releases that were a part of that there. 10,349 is what was totaled. The numbers from the city of El Paso, citing what was received from CBP as of last week, the 50th week of the year.
The 50th week of the year, and we got 10,000 of them.
Correct.
Okay.
I will say, just for context there, it was also 8,000 the week prior.
Okay. There are a lot of little small towns out there that don't have 10,000. There's a lot of them that have somewhere like 5,000-6,000 or less. And you get a lot of individuals that come in to those towns, and they don't understand our system of law. They don't understand our Bill of Rights, nor our Constitution. And they bring in their own ways from other countries, which majority of them that they're leaving are socialist. So they're thinking that they can do things like they did back then and bribe cops and stuff like that and work with gangs. And they bring in drugs. It was just reported on your newscast that there was like 50,000 pounds of... I
don't think it was 50,000 pounds, but 50,000 like pills or doses, enough to kill the country here. I mean, it is a significant... I mean, the fentanyl issue is definitely, the fact that it's gotten to be one of the number one killers of the 18 to 45 in that demographic in this country should be, it should have been alarm bells well before this point, but if people are paying attention to it now, I guess better late than never.
Yes, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, is because you have people that are in control like Mayorkas and Biden. And I don't think Biden understands what's going on. But you have people in control like Mayorkas that say there's nothing wrong with the border, that it's secure and everything. Well, it depends upon your definition of secure and definition of crisis. If you're with a Clouden and Piven group, Marxist group, then yes, you want more disruption in the United States to take down what we currently have with our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. Does that make sense?
I guess the concept of it there, yes, I understand what you're talking about here. What I will say there is that the conversations often going around about the openness of the border or not, the conversations that go on with it here, I go by the definitional standpoint of if the border was open, there would be no border patrol, there would be no fences, it would just be free movement back and forth. I know that that's not often the way it's talked about. If we're getting down to brass tacks, that's where it comes in here, and that's why I think calling it that is a disservice to those servicemen and women, those agents in Border Patrol, CBP, ICE agencies, because the work they are doing is very much the proof that it's not. I think the more important question often comes down to about the concept of operational control, as it's put here. Who has control? Who is able to enforce control on the sides of the border here? Now, of course, there have been incidents in years past of, minor incursions, crossing over dry riverbeds, those kind of things here. And I still do maintain until proven otherwise here that the United States has operational control, even if there might be significant disagreements about how that operations are actually being handled.
Yeah, and you're coming to my second point, because you know who's in control on the other side of the border?
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely the cartel. I mean, that much is pretty obvious.
Cartel,
yeah,
exactly. The drug cartels, exactly. You got that exactly right. Okay, it's not the Mexican government; it's the drug cartels. And how long is it going to be before the drug cartels are controlling interior portions of the United States? They have stations and little communities that they use to drop drugs off so they can distribute it, let's say in Denver. All right, they have a small community south of Denver or somewhere around there where they gather all their drugs as a drop-off point, or an AO, as we used to call it, an area of operation, where they have their headquarters of distribution in a small town. Then they have their little mules and stuff that take it into Denver. And that's going all the way around the United States.
I mean, we've got the whole situations involving the stash houses that we've been demonstrably seeing in our area, and that is by no means solely a local phenomenon here. So there definitely are instances of where the operations are happening on this side of it. I mean, they are definitely wanting to continue their pipeline of money, drugs, cash, weapons, etc., both north and south here. That's demonstrably happening.
Yes, and when you brought up money, do you know who's helping the drug cartels in Mexico control their money and do the laundering of the money?
I mean, that's a pretty complicated question, but what point did you want to make?
That's a nation called China. And who's our number one enemy today? It's not Russia, it's China.
Yeah, I can see arguments on both sides of that, but I understand what you're saying. Sure thing. Appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
I mean, I guess, there's on the international stage, there's definitely arguments to be made about China being one of the largest threats, nascent ones. I mean, the whole way they handle everything, including the South China Sea, you take that to and export it as they want to. Yeah, start looking at even more serious issues. But I mean, I would still say that I'm still very concerned about Russia and their ambitions when it comes to, I mean, literally out of Vladimir Putin's mouth, the borders of Russia never end. He said it was a joke, but I wasn't laughing at that point in time. Anyway, let's go ahead and take that next break now. We keep going to those longer conversations, but I guess we do have serious things to talk about here. So if you want to get on the line, that number to do so, again, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this Fox 14 News Update. Texas National Guard troops and Texas State Troopers conducted training exercises on the border near downtown El Paso today. Texas Governor Greg Abbott deployed 400 Texas National Guard troops to El Paso to assist in the humanitarian migrant crisis. Additional DPS troopers have also arrived in our city. Both the Texas National Guard and troopers are set to provide safety and security on the ground and across the community. City officials say the Texas Guard personnel are providing humanitarian support to migrants. They're providing logistics logistical support and processing travel for migrants as well. In El Paso, police officials say a 25-year-old man has been arrested and accused of stabbing his grandfather to death with a fork. Officers arrested 25-year-old Kevin Joe Robles. The stabbing happened on the 300 block of Colmillo last Wednesday. The man who died was identified as 81-year-old Juan Julian Macias Salas. I'm Iraca Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound is slow in a couple of spots this afternoon between Sumac Drive and the Patriot, past the Patriots, an 18-minute delay. Also, I-10 westbound Sunland Park up to Artcraft is a 10-minute delay. You're looking at slow traffic, set you back about 15 minutes. I-10 eastbound from Trans Mountain to the Patriot, and slow on Montana Avenue eastbound from Yarborough out to Zaragoza, 10-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We've got another cold night ahead of us tonight as temperatures cool back to near freezing, even below freezing in those outlying areas. So we start off cold on your Wednesday. Temperatures during the day should become warmer as we get into Thursday. And then by Thursday night, our winter storm arrives, bringing with it some very strong, gusty, and very cold Arctic air. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Stand Up to Cancer.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
The hugs, the joy, even the sleepless nights. Whatever you get from parenthood, you always want to give your children everything. And the UNest app makes it easy to save for their future. The UNest app puts smart investing tools right in the palm of your hand. Plus, you'll grow your UNest account with every purchase you make from over 150 top brands like Disney Plus and DoorDash. Start building your child's financial future. Download the UNest app from the App Store or Google Play. See terms and conditions at unest.co. That's UNEST.co.
Car crimes are on the rise. Protect yourself and your valuables this holiday season. When you park your car, always lock it down. Never leave keys in your vehicle. Never leave your windows down. Don't leave your valuables in plain sight, or you might return to a terrible sight. Try to park in well-lit areas. And most importantly, always lock it down. Brought to you by the Insurance Council of Texas and the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority. Learn more at lockitdowntx.com.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Is the Binance crypto exchange at risk of blowing up next? And what does Bitcoin's price tell us what comes next? I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to The Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by The Mark Moss Show podcast.
Stay informed at kcsmradio.com. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages here. I do take emails as well. If you want to provide more context, particularly if you want me to read something, send me an article, those kind of things. It's one of the better ways. Andrew Polk at iHeartMedia.com. But also, wasn't planning on talking about drag shows at all today, but let me just say that anything of adult nature, sexual content, etc., being portrayed to kids is that's a real hard row to hoe there, no pun intended, but people want to go with it here. And just again, to read the one that was brought up by the previous caller here of the drag queen quiz, I don't know why I keep getting a list with that, drag queen Christmas, that all ages welcome, but remember this is the Naughty Tour and all ages show, but warning adult comedy. So some of the conversations going on there trying to say that that's a good thing. I'm not going to go along with you much there. I mean, again, adult of age person can do most what they want as long as it doesn't literally harm someone else here. There's, again, plenty out in this world that I don't agree with, but hey, when in doubt, err on the side of liberty, because would you want the same kind of rules enforced on you? Not of the content, but of the, I don't like what you're doing, therefore you're not allowed to. It's simple answer, no. But yeah, whether or not that should be considered okay is maybe a different question at all there. Anyway, let's go ahead and get back to those phone lines now. We do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
This is too funny. I just heard Befuddled Ben going on and on about how he is so upset about the drag queens. Hey, Ben, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. It's in the Declaration of Independence. Now, these people want to go out and have fun. And just because you can't find the right dress to participate doesn't mean that they can't have life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness. That's right in that box right there. Now, I want to ask Oscar Leeser, the mayor. He's such a good boy, by the way. That's what his mom says.
True.
Now, he asked emergency declaration relative to this, the invasion, if you will, of the border crossers and stuff. Now, I'm asking you this, Andrew. Is he getting support from the state, federal government relative to the emergency action he asked for? That's what I want to ask.
So federal, yes, to my understanding before this point, there was the, again, roughly $6 million that we had talked about that has come from as kind of advance funding for the current situation from the federal government. And again, I believe that's just to the city. I'm not sure if there's other parts of it going to the county as well. And then there was of the city's current existing, I think it was about $7 million outstanding. About $3 million has been either put forth or is under consideration there. So there is some support happening there. Now, since the disaster declaration, there has also been what has been coming from the state here. Again, those pictures, I haven't popped them up this hour, so let me go ahead and put them up there for our online audiences of what we've been seeing on the soft banks of the Rio Grande along the El Paso region today, showing some of those, state military department and state trooper, both troops and vehicles there, string of the concertina wire. I want to say that that is primarily a state effort and part of a quote-unquote training exercise that's been going on right now, but I don't see this coming down at the very, I don't think it's down by the end of today. Let me put it that way. So yes, there has been that level of support. One other thing that I realized I didn't mention earlier in the program, but is certainly worth mentioning in reference to this here, is that there actually are, as a part of some of those support things, there actually has begun now busing out of the area done by the state here specifically. I do believe that they're kind of going to the whole New York and Chicago kind of thing. About 200 set on those state organized buses so far, is my understanding.
Okay, well, that's a good thing. But let me say something. And 3 cheers for all you El Pasoans out there that are stepping up to the plate to help your fellow citizens out there in the world. This is a good thing. This is a very good thing. However, on the opposite side of the fence here, it could be possibly overwhelming to the degree where it's going to be self-defeating. And I've talked about this before. Now, this Title 42 thing, I think especially because China is having a resurgence in COVID, and Lord help us if somehow, some way, or any of the other stupid diseases, that somehow these folks coming in from wherever they're coming from, and then next thing you know, we've got another wreck on our economy. And I just don't think this is sustainable, Andrew. That's my point. That's all I want to say about that.
I mean, frankly, outside of the COVID considerations, I think that this is unsustainable here. And a comment had come in earlier about the potential for how many people might be crossing here. I think I see the point had been brought up here from our news partners there at KFOX 14, reporting on what Oscar Leeser was saying, even in some of those news conferences a little bit earlier this week, that it's estimated that there are about 20,000 waiting currently over in Ciudad Juarez for potential crossings here. So it wouldn't necessarily be 20,000 a day, as someone previously said, but it could be significant portions of that at any given point if there is the kind of that action item. And I mean, at the end of Title 42 is very much the anticipated and kind of maybe seeing a trigger point at this point in time. And again, it's going to overwhelm local resources unless there is some massive changes in it. But even then, I'm just going to put it this way, that even if there is not the end of Title 42, which may or may not be anticipated, going to go through at this point in time, what the administration says, falling back on Title 8, whatever. Point is that this situation as it is, the policies that have gotten us here definitely need to be changed, because even if we're not seeing the people crossing, there are still the refugee camps that have been happening in Juarez. And as part of that here, so this is still not any point of it, even just on the U.S. side of it, a good situation. All we're really doing at this point is saying, well, let's just keep the problem over there. It's not our problem that way. And sure, if that lets you sleep at night, but it's not exactly comforting to me to think that, human suffering as a result of all of this is just an okay thing if it's not on our literal doorstep, the kind of figurative one of Juarez there. But is a longer term solution. I mean, dealing with it in the short term here, I think needs to be the primary focus, because anything less than will be engendering further human suffering and issues that we're going to be going on for a long time here. And just because it keeps coming up here, anyone wanting to see a violent solution to this, get right out of my face with that, because that is beyond ridiculous here. I mean, sure, if you want to talk about violent solutions to social problems, let's just nuke everyone else here, and no one else will cause any problems for us here. And if that sounds unreasonable, know that that's on the same level of spectrum as what we're talking about when we're talking about, the idea of mining the border or things like that. It's idiotic. I just got to say that out there and flat out here. Not something you brought up, Frankie, but it's been coming up here by more than a couple of people at this point here. But again, to the core point that you're bringing up there about this not being a good situation, again, Title 42, whether it stays or not, it seems on the way out, and there's been some movement on maybe having to keep NPP around. I think the long-term solution actually has to be new policy being put forth by this administration, and the fact that there hasn't even been anything particularly suggested. I mean, some of the things that have come up from, say, Mayorkas or congressional representation have been the idea of doing third country processing, those kind of things, which bears some water in my mind, but I haven't actually seen anything substantive from the administration put forth on it.
Okay, the operative words that you just eruditely explained is change, new policy, because this is not sustainable, because this is not going to work. And I'm not just talking El Paso. I mean, other border crossing circumstances and whatnot and so forth. But it's just not sustainable, Andrew. And I don't know how it happens, whether or not there is the heft within the political process to do this, because of all the reasons you can imagine, but this just is not working. Anyway, that's all I want to say. So, and keep me on, please, because I got stupid static again, all right?
Yeah, sure thing. Getting close to the end here, so I think we can keep you in the queue there, but appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one.
Okay, bye.
Let's try to squeeze to at least one or two more if we can here. We do have Kevin on the east side with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. That was Frankie from New Mexico, your last caller, I believe.
Correct.
I want to applaud him for bringing up the topic of COVID perhaps coming in again from China. Detected. For example, we have many what they call getaways or gotaways on our own border down here from various countries, and we don't know what they're bringing in. It used to be, and perhaps it still is, that a person who desires to come into the United States must have a medical clearance. I know my wife got one. Her brothers and sisters got them. My grandmother landed in Ellis Island. She had to be checked out there, or they wouldn't let her come into the United States. There has to be a renewed emphasis on health of the people we're bringing in. It's nice to say, well, these poor people, and oh, they deserve more and all this. Maybe they do. But if they're going to bring in diseases, then that ends it with me as far as sympathy for them is concerned.
I guess, I mean, there would be in a truly formulated response, which, again, I do not feel we are at the level that would ideally be a part of it. I mean, quarantine is a thing that can be done in a place about saying, okay, you're not going to be released into the United States until you either, have to return back, and the way we're doing with flights, in 2020 and 2021, those kind of ways of, unless you're showing clearance and not able to get into, those have obviously been put into place. Not necessarily feasible in this circumstance, because what we've been seeing here is that due to the lack of information, the lack of knowing everyone crossing into the United States, which I still don't really think is reasonable to say that is allowed to continue happening in this day and age, given the technology and the other systems that we should have in place. But again, that's a longer conversation about what has or hasn't happened over decades at this point. The fact of the matter is that I think that the idea of making sure that people are medically cleared is probably important, because, I mean, we do have various things that go wrong in our area, including tuberculosis. That is a documented issue often talked about by local health authorities, because there are issues with it, given the sometimes lack of control there is about what crosses. I mean, we've joked previously in the past about the fact that we have illicit bologna being smuggled across here, intentionally or not here, but that's kind of a symptom of a larger issue about, I mean, that's just what's found. How much then isn't found, isn't caught, isn't, etc. And that can cause serious agricultural harm in its own right and in those ways here. So, fact of the matter is that I would say that in the current situation, enforcing that absolutely probably wouldn't be an exact solution here unless there was, again, an off-ramp. I think off-ramps, the idea of trying to actually deal with the situation as opposed to plugging it, so to speak. There's a lot of talk about how do we stop it? How do we, stop it from being our problem, as some also put there here. Not exactly accusing you of that, but it's often a bit of the conversation. I think we need to be looking at off-ramps about how do we essentially lessen the situation until it ceases that way, because, I mean, Title 42, as it has been implemented, has been put a cork in it. And what happens if there's still pressure behind the cork there? You shake up a champagne bottle and then don't point it at your face kind of thing. It's going to pop, no matter how stringently you're holding on to the top of it there. So seeing actually how to lessen, in that case, the pressure, but I'm going to keep using the phrase off-ramps because it's the one that makes the most sense to me, about trying to make it so that we can get people out of this. I mean, it's not a binary thing of either there are a problem or not. I mean, the situation still exists. So by lessening it, so to your point there about the idea of the medical screening and the issues with that, I mean, again, if we had better control and better systems in place, more responsiveness, proactiveness, heck, what a concept there of having medical quarantine, able to, have people cleared and therefore able to enter on, those kind of things. That would be what I would like to see. I don't think that is exactly feasible at this immediate point in time, even though I'd like to see it within short order. But again, my crystal ball is cloudy as ever and things keep changing daily on all of these subjects.
I would like to see, thorough exams, but we can't have that, as you seem to be pointing out. Just a perfunctory check of people to see if they're healthy or not would be a step in the right direction. And that's all I got.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew.
I mean, there's a lot to be delved into and a lot more policies, procedures, et cetera, that probably need to be discussed, debated, and ultimately implemented, I would say. But we're, again, not exactly in that position at this point in time. I don't necessarily have a lot of reason to be hopeful. I mean, okay, I end up being weirdly optimistic in a lot of ways in this show, even though I definitely don't think of myself as it is. But I would like to see some definite legislation coming out for this next session of Congress to deal with this here. I mean, sure, there were a few things that I think have pretty much fallen off of the actual priority list for this lame duck session of Congress. But that's what I see being the actual long-term solution to all of this here, even if in the interim and in the short term, we've got serious human issues to deal with in the meantime here. So, okay, I think we can squeeze in one more quick call. We do have Raul in the Northeast line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. A couple things to the final comments that Representative Moody made the other day about his fear, his concern of possible violence wreaked on these immigrants in our community from the demonization, the villainization of these poor people coming across the border. I know who he was referring to. He was talking about Donald Trump. He caused 23, his rhetoric, his xenophobic, racist rhetoric cost 23 people their lives here from an ignited terrorist who drove 600 miles to do his dirty deed. And you hear it on your show. You just made reference to it yourself about people talking about violence. And you know what? The virus came from the fact that we have to live in a globalized economy. People travel all the time from Latin America and South America into the United States and from all over the world to the United States and from the United States to all over the world. It's part of global economies. And people talking about, oh, you got to be afraid of going outside your house. That's ridiculous. That guy who said that, he's a wuss. That's his problem, On another issue, I want to wish all the Trumpers out there a merry criminal referrals to the DOJ of Donald Trump. Historical, unprecedented. And now his tax returns are going to be released. Remember when he told everybody he was going to release his tax return? He lied. He lies a lot. And now they're going to be released. And I don't think it's all that big of a deal. I mean, it should be part of what we would require anybody who wants to run for president to do, along with other things, like having a health checkout that everybody gets to see the results of the health checkout. The founding fathers couldn't imagine a guy like Donald Trump, but this guy who broke all kinds of precedents, all kinds of traditions, has set a new bar, the bar to the lowest we've ever seen. We should expect a lot more from our leaders.
I'll agree with you there that people should be expecting more here, and sure, there are a lot of people that like the personage of Donald Trump out there, and I got to say that is anytime you're getting into cult of personality territory, it's kind of missing the point here, because our elected officials are supposed to serve us, those that elect them, and anything less than that about, just such a good guy, doesn't he deserve it, is kind of missing the point in my mind. Again, sure, take whatever you want as long as it takes you into the ballot box. Those reasonings for it here. Again, we had like a 5.5% voter turnout in our area for these city council runoffs here. That's a whole nother show that I'll probably harp on at the end of the week. But point is that, rhetoric does matter, and particularly those in positions of power saying things that, you play with fire and you're going to get burned. And as much as you're trying to directly connect the, statements that were made there to what happened in August, the August 3rd, the fact of the matter is that, that was an attack on our community, and there's no real way to sugarcoat it that way. This person came here in order to kill people who were here, and there's not a lot of ways to not take that very personally here. One of the reasons in the whole district attorney situation, been very focused on wanting to make sure that case can go off successfully, and we'll still see what happens when it comes to that here. But, if you really want to get into the indictment part of it as well, sure, precedent's broken here, but it's interesting you mentioned that not actually laws being broken as part of that here, because there's a whole lot of things that are done of it. Well, it's just always been done that way, and if you want tax returns to be required in law, then put them required in law. That's certainly a conversation that can be had, but I guess we'll see what actually comes out of these criminal referrals here, along with the other proceedings of it, and we'll talk further about that once we get to that there. So thanks for the point in the call. I do appreciate it for what it's worth, and we're going to end up taking that last break right now. So coming out of this break, I don't think we'll have time for any other calls here. We'll just tell you what we got coming up for you on the program, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
No crashes on your El Paso freeway. It's just a lot of slowing. I-10 eastbound is slow, 10-minute delays from Trans Mountain to the Patriot. Westbound on the 10, it's stop and go from the Hunter Viscount exit to past the Patriot with 19-minute delays. And again, slow on the I-10 westbound from the Schuster Avenue exit up to Red, 9-minute delays. Montana Avenue slow eastbound from Hawkins out to Zaragoza with 13-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. The final days of Winterfest are here at Lowe's. Save now before they're gone. Get up to 50% off select tools, accessories, and smart home products. Valid through 12/24 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
New on Curiosity Stream. From predicting volcanic eruptions to alligator blood that could save human lives.
We're already getting science data that's never been seen before.
The year's best scientific news and breakthroughs on top science stories of 2022. Plus, gazelles in the Old Testament, whales in the Gospel. We're well beyond fish and donkeys here. It's the old world creatures you'd never expect to find in Holy Scripture on Animals of the Bible. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. And for a limited time, get 40% off our annual plan. That's just $1 a month. Visit CuriosityStream.com.
Because everyone deserves excellent medical care, El Paso has its own free community medical clinic. RotoCare is a free walk-in clinic located at 301 South Schutz Drive and is devoted to improving the health of all El Pasoans, including those without insurance or legal documentation. RotoCare is open most Saturdays from 9 a.m. to noon. For more information, call 790-0700. RotoCare, because everyone deserves excellent medical care.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
that is going to do it for us for today. So I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. Seriously, these conversations I think are important to have, and even when we get into difficult subjects. And anyone saying that, no, you're not allowed to talk about that. Oh, we're going to talk about it and talk about it in the way that we need to discuss these things. Anything being kept in the shadows, even if you disagree with the points, the idea of these things being kept in the shadows, being like, no, that's not acceptable thought, so therefore you're not allowed to express it here. Like, no, let's take on the thoughts and the points here, not allow them to exist in the shadows here. So again, if you're interested in talking about the things that actually affect us here in the borderland, this is the right place for you to be, as we do it every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Real quickly for you, again, end of this week, going to be doing the open line show. Throwdown Thursday is what we're going to do it this week. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking with our news partners there at KFOX 14. So back at that. So again, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
No crashes on your El Paso freeway. It's just a lot of slowing. I-10 eastbound is slow, 10-minute delays from Trans Mountain to the Patriot. Westbound on the 10, it's stop and go from the Hunter Viscount exit to past the Patriot with 19-minute delays. And again, slow on the I-10 westbound from the Schuster Avenue exit up to Red, 9-minute delays. Montana Avenue slow eastbound from Hawkins out to Zaragoza with 13-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Text and whatever. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio on the hour and the half. KTSM traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The White House is formally asking the U.S. Supreme Court to deny efforts to keep Title 42 in place. However, it's also asking for a delay until next week if the request by multiple states to keep it in place is denied. Indicted FTX founder Sam.
Thank you all so very
America Beautiful.
Sign up now at Smart.
Children's Cancer Research.